Now that we have our document created, we're going to go ahead and create our background for our cave painting, which is going to be the cave wall that we're going to go and paint on. So we need to add some color, we're going to add some texture. Before we do that, I want to talk for a second about the brush tool. This tool here is the brush tool, and it allows you to just create freehand lines, freehand drawing with this tool. And you can change the color of it, you can change the size of the brush. For example, if I go up here to this pull down menu, I can control the size of the brush. If I move the slide rule to the right, it's going to make the brush larger. It's too large. If I bring the hardness down, there's the second slide rule. If I bring this all the way down, now the edge of my brush isn't hard anymore. Now I have this soft edge to my brush, which makes it look like an airbrush effect. So I can change the size of the brush by going up here to this pull down menu. I can control the hardness from 0 to 100 if I need to. And if you take a look here, I also have lots of different other brush options in this pull down menu. I've got the standard circle brush tool, but then there's also these other kind of brush tools that we have also that you give you different kinds of effects with each brush. And there's lots of cool ones in here. So if you get time, you might want to go in and just kind of play with these and experiment with brushes. And these are not the only brushes that are available to you. There's also a whole library of different types of brushes. If you go to this little pull down menu here, there are lots of different brush libraries that you can choose from. So you may want to take some time and experiment with those and see the kind of effects you can get with the brushes. So I'm going to go back and choose my basic brush here. Bring the size up a little bit. Okay. Now, if I want to change the color of my brush, then I would go down here to where it says, you can do it a number of ways, but one way is to go down here to where it says set foreground color. Now the foreground color is going to be the color of your brush. Whatever color is here will be the color of your paintbrush or other drawing tool. For example, if I hold down the brush tool menu, I see there's a pencil tool, there's other kinds of tools. If I use the pencil tool, again, that'll give me a line that I can create as well. So if I click here with the foreground color, remember this is going to be essentially your ink. Now the background color acts like an eraser. So if I click here, let's say, actually let's do this. Let me go and draw something. And then if I choose the eraser tool, which is this tool right here, and knowing this is white, then I can increase the size of my brush and go in, let's make it a little bit bigger, and go in, and then now I can just erase what I've drawn. Okay. Really I'm not erasing. What's happening is I'm really just painting over the document with white ink. But it acts as an eraser. It acts as the background. So if I click here, I come up with this color picker, which gives me a whole range of colors to choose from. I've got this window here, which really lets me choose a broad range of colors, really kind of the entire spectrum of colors. And once I move it to a specific area, now I can use this window here to choose a specific color. Right now black is chosen. Black is the ink that I have right here. And if you notice, the pointer is kind of right here. The selection tool right here is right here in this bottom left hand corner, showing me that's completely black. If I were to click on another area anywhere in this window, I can choose a specific color in this range right here. And if you notice, it shows up in the new color window, still showing me my current color, which is the black, but whatever new color I choose will show up here. And then when I'm ready, I can just hit OK. And then I can go and paint. Oh, sorry, I've got the eraser tool. And then I can go and paint with whatever color I have chosen in this window. If I want to go back, I can choose another area. I can choose that color. It'll show up here again. Here's my current color. Here's my new color. I can hit OK. And again, I can paint with the color that I've chosen. If I want to go back and use a color that I've used in the document, say I start to use, we'll use this little reddish color here, and then I go back and change the color to, say, a purple, and then I want to use that, and I want to go back and use this reddish pink color again. Well, I don't have to go back and try and figure out what color it is. I can just take this tool here, which is the eyedropper, and if I click on the color, click on those pixels, that color automatically shows up back in my foreground color window. So that's a good way, an easy way to choose a color that you've already used in a document again. Alright, let's get rid of this. Okay, so that's a little bit about the brush. Now, what I want to do is I want to create our digital cave background. Now, if you remember, when we took a look at some cave paintings, there were some variations in color. There was kind of a light tan, a little bit darker tan, maybe a little bit of red kind of in the background somewhere. So we're going to simulate that. So the first thing I need to do is click on my foreground color, and I want to bring my slide rule down to kind of the yellows and the golds right about here, because remember, we're going to use warm colors. And so let me see, I'm clicking here now. Whenever I click, it's showing the color here, so I can take a look at this and see if that's really the color I want to go with. I think maybe I want to go with a little bit more red to it, and I'm going to go with, say, this color here. Now, if you'll notice, when I do that, every time I do that, the numbers here change. And since I'm working in RGB, these are the numbers I kind of want to pay attention to. So as I click, those numbers change, giving me the correct values for our RGB, which is red, green, blue. So if I wanted to reproduce this color again at another time, I can just record these numbers for RGB and use them again. Now, you don't need to use these exact colors. I want you to have a little bit of creativity here, a little bit of freedom. So I would just say you kind of want to choose a color in this area here. But if you feel more comfortable using the colors that I've chosen, you can go ahead and use these colors. But I'm going to kind of eyeball it here. So I'll go and just click this color here, and the color shows up here. This is going to be my new color once I click OK. So now if we take a look in the foreground color palette, I've got the new color that I've just chosen. Now what I want to do is, before I start to paint, right now if I just go in and start to paint, and I've got the eraser tool again. Right now if I start to paint, it's going to give me this hard edge color. That's not what I want. I want this to be a little bit more random, a little bit feathered. I don't want a hard edge on my colors. So I'm going to go up here to this pull down menu. I want my size of my brush to be a little bit larger. I think a little bit larger, and then I want to bring my hardness all the way down to 0 because I want a really, really soft edge. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a little bit larger. And also, you can change the brush of your size a couple different ways. You can change it here. You can also, on your keyboard, you can use the right bracket key to make your brush larger, and the left bracket key to make your brush smaller. So now I'm going to go in, and I'm just going to kind of randomly just, yes, I want a bigger brush, so I'm going to use the right bracket key and make that a little bit larger. And I just want to kind of randomly just kind of click and move a little bit. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to fill the whole document with color. You can leave a little bit of open areas. And I'm just going to kind of go in and kind of just something random like that. Now, I want to add some color variations to this. So I'm going to click back on my foreground color, and I'm just going to go down a little bit directly beneath the color that I had. Going directly down is going to give you a dark variation of the color you've chosen, the same hue. You could go in a different area if you want to. But I'm just going to go kind of down a little bit here, make it a little bit darker. I just want to do slight changes. So now, do the same thing. I'm going to go in and maybe do some darker variations. I don't want to do too much. I just want to add some variations. And then I might want to go back and maybe add a little bit more red this time. Maybe maybe something like that. And then I want to do it very faintly. I don't want to overkill. Just maybe a couple here, that kind of thing. So now I've got variations in my cave wall. I have the base color of the wall, and then I went in and added some darker elements, darker versions of that color, and then went in and added a little bit more red to my ink, and then just kind of randomly placed them around. So it looks very random, very organic. That's the look we're going for. So now that we have the background, we need to add a little bit of texture to it. Because remember, when we took a look at the paintings of some of the cave paintings, there was a texture to the walls. There was a grit to the wall, and right now we don't have that. All we have is color, but we don't really have any texture yet. And we're going to do that with a filter, with a Photoshop filter called Noise. So we'll go up to Filter, down to Noise, and select Add Noise. Now these filters here are all kinds of different special effects filters that are built into Photoshop. You can have time, when you have time, go in and play with some of these, and they'll show you what the effects are like. So we're going to go to Noise, Add Noise. Now, if you notice, what happened was that it added this green to the layout, to the illustration, and we want to put the grain at about, let's try if we increase this a little bit. If you move it too much, if you add too much grain, then it's going to get really kind of distracting. So you want to do it subtly. So I would keep the amount of your noise to maybe somewhere between 16 and 18, I think. I'm going to go with, I'm going to type in 18 and hit Tab. And I'm going to keep it at 18. Something else you also want to make sure is selected is you want to select Gaussian, because if it's uniform, it's going to look a little bit too uniform. We want something that's a little bit more organic looking, and clicking the Gaussian button is going to give that kind of random organic look. Also, you notice that monochromatic is selected. If I deselect this, well, now it's going to give me, if you take a look at the grain here, it's almost like a rainbow grain, which is really not something we want. See, it starts to add all these colors in the image, and that's something that we don't want. So you want to make sure that you have monochromatic selected. And then we'll hit OK. So now we have our cave wall with some variations in color and some tonal values. We've added some texture. And now we should probably, why don't we go ahead and save our file. So you can either go Command S or Control S, or if you go File, Save, it's going to give you the opportunity to name the file. We want to name this Cave Painting _ I want you to put your name in the file. And right now we're going to save this as a PSD file, which is simply a Photoshop file. We're not going to save it as a JPEG or a PDF or anything like that. We want to keep it as a Photoshop file right now because we're not done working in it. And I'm going to save mine someplace where it's easy to find. I'm going to save it to my desktop. And I'm going to hit Save. Okay, now we've saved our file. Now we're going to move on to actually creating the cave painting.